For lo, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth, the time of the singing of birds is come, and the voice of the turtle is heard in our land. Those were the words legendary Detroit Tigers broadcaster Ernie Harwell would use, and I would hear every year as a kid on my transistor radio, and I figure with spring kicking off, why not dust them off? I'm Jared Stays, and welcome to your Daily Detroit for Tuesday, April 2nd, 2023, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan, coming to you from the studio at Techtown. Across the table from me is none other than the indefatigable Fletcher Sharpe. How are you?
8 days till the end of Ramadan, so
Home stretch, man.
I am feeling a lot better. Eid is going to, as the kids say, hit a lot harder than normal. I'm very thrilled to make it through. I'm also thrilled that it's, technically April in the D season. I always love a good April in the D, especially when the teams actually look like they could really make some damage in the season.
Honestly, as we're recording this, it has been a pretty solid spring in Detroit, except for the Detroit Red Wings that we're going to frankly have to cross our fingers on. The Detroit Tigers, 3-0 start against the White Sox. Detroit City Football Club, 3-0 start to the season with another win over the weekend, Indy 11. And the Michigan Panthers got 3 points late from 64 yards out for a season-opening win. And Fletcher Sharpe, you were there. What was it like at Ford Field to see that kick? I mean, this guy apparently has not kicked a field goal since high school. What was the vibe, man?
Yeah, Jake Bates from Tomball, Texas, same city as Jimmy Butler, the Miami Heat, was a renowned soccer player in his city, went to Central Texas to play soccer, ended up switching to football, was a kickoff specialist, then he went to Arkansas, kickoff specialist there. People are like, why didn't he kick field goals there? He was behind the Lou Groza winner, who Lou Groza is the award for the top kicker in all of college football. So, obviously you're not going to replace him. So Jake Bates was like, I'll take a chance at the UFL. When they initially sent him out there, we're like, are they punting? It's 3 seconds left. He lined up 20 yards away, and I guess it was because he was trying to compose himself. And he lined up, took his first kick, and they iced him, and he hit it, and we're like, well, we can get this one out of the way. But we watched the ball sail through the uprights, and we're like, oh, okay, he can get it there. There was really no pressure because they didn't rush after him, but all right, maybe he has a shot this time. And they lined up to hit it again, and all people saw was the ball go through the net. He could have kicked it from 70 and probably still yeeted that thing over the bar. He didn't look, obviously he was celebrating. He didn't look that phased, and obviously the coach sending him out there, Mike Nolan, must have known that he could do that, seeing it in practice, and especially in a dome where there's no wind. Lions fans know all too well. They lost to the Ravens similar way, except it was 66 yards instead of 62. But still, amazing thing to see. And I really wish I had my phone out when he kicked the second one. I really do, because that would have been something just to have as a moment, because, yeah, that's really far.
The replays were amazing to watch. What about the game in general? I think more than 9,000 people made it out to the Panthers.
Yeah, 9,444. The Panthers won, which is all that matters in the end. But that offense needs some work. They moved the ball down the field well enough, but E.J. Perry, his first interception was just not good. He didn't see the linebacker. The second one wasn't a great read by him, but the ball ricocheted off two people and fell into the DB's hands, so we're not going to fault him there. And if you're not going to win with your arm, win with your legs. He scored 2 rushing touchdowns to help put the Panthers in the lead. He had some 2-point conversions, which was also nice. One thing I like about the UFL, 2 things. One, they don't kick extra points. You either line up at the 2 and go for 1, line up a bit further away, go for 2, line up at the 10 and go for 3.
Really?
I like that.
Really? Okay.
And also, they bring in Mike Pereira, the NFL head referee guy. When there's a challenge call, they bring him in to explain to the entire stadium, what's happening, what's being challenged, and why. And then he typically is like, oh, here's what happened. This guy did this and did this. So the call's not going to stand. And, even as someone who understands sports really well, having him come in and explain to every single person is great, because you don't have that guy who's like, they cheated, they did this. No, you have the guy literally explaining to you why the call is not the way it's supposed to be. I think it's a bit redundant to have the referee come out and be like, yeah, call doesn't stand. It's he already said in the Jumbotron, we don't need you, but appreciate you doing your job anyways.
It seems like the NFL is picking up some things from the UFL. including the kickoff. The NFL's changed up their kickoff protocols too, and inspired by the UFL. Like, these are things that it feels like the UFL not only is a development league for players, but development league for rules we might see in the future.
It's a bit different. The UFL still has their setup for the full kickoff, albeit it's a bit more of a scrum. The NFL's is more of everyone lines up at the same space, so there's no like super collisions happening when there's still a return. There were some exciting returns during the game. I mean, nothing for a touchdown, but there were some pretty long returns as a result, and they seemed safe. Like, obviously, people like it because it's like a simulation of a car crash because you're running full speed both ways to hit somebody. That element's going to be taken out a little bit, but there's still some excitement watching them return the ball.
Now, that kicker online, people are saying the Lions should look at him. What do you think, Fletcher?
They already have, apparently. On Sunday, it was said that by Tony Paul that the Lions have inquired about Jake Bates. I'll say this. I think it'd be a good publicity stunt right now. He's got to see him kick more field goals from 50 yards or out. Like, if he hits a few more, I'm not saying even from 60, but just like 51, 52, 53, and he goes like, I don't know, 5 for 7, 7 for 10, yeah, then sign him up. Because at that point, you have a guy who can show that he can do it, even if the UFL is not the NFL. Kicking is kicking. It's one of those things that translates over really well. Like, you could be a dominant quarterback in the UFL and go to the NFL and be terrible. Same with being a receiver, same with being a running back. But kicking is kicking. It's about how well can you compose yourself to then boom the ball down the field between the pylons. The Dallas Cowboys kicker was in the UFL last year, and he switched over and did so swimmingly. So as long as you can remain consistent, it can be great. If he can hit the ball from 50-plus yards consistently, Michael Badgley, get ready to learn a different city's area code, because no way.
All right. Now, the Tigers had a great little start. Now, I'm not going to say it's a great start to the season. I want to get like 10 or 20 games in to say that. But a 3-0 start does not hurt, especially with how many times we have started off with a lot of pain, with sweeping the Chicago White Sox over the weekend and with their opening day. Look, Fletcher, I'll just be honest. I am positive about this team. I am positive that they're going to play at least 500 ball. And if they can play like this in the division they're in, I don't see, and we're recording this before the Mets game, but I don't see why this team doesn't win a division title. That bullpen was strong. There was some hitting. I mean, Javi Baez was Javi Baezing, but outside of that, like, I really liked what I saw. I actually watched the entirety of Sunday's game, and it was really fun. I am glad to look at opening day coming up this Friday and be like, you know what? This isn't just about the party. We might actually be able to watch some good ball.
Yeah, Javi Baez should move to Holland and take up another job, because I don't know. They're not even
Why
throwing.
Holland?
Why Holland?
Yeah.
Windmill.
Oh,
They're not even throwing him strikes anymore. They're throwing him balls, and he's like, "Why not?" Like, come on, man. What are you doing? There are people who could like come out there and not have any baseball acumen and do the same thing. But to the positive, Kerry Carpenter looks good. He looks good. I don't want him to fall off like many other Tigers players in the past, but so far he looks composed. Mark Canha has been a solid addition so far. As Javi Baez has not been great with his bat, but he has been good with his glove still. We can appreciate that. I don't know. They look more composed, and obviously the offense didn't boom every single game, but the fact they remained composed at the end to pull out some wins, which is what you want to see from Detroit teams. You want to see the grittiness. You want to see them get down and go, okay, it's not over for us yet. We can still put our foot down, wipe the blood off our face and get back in there. After having the lead taken away late against the White Sox in the final game, and then to figure out a way to get in there late, get another run, and then hold on to win, you always want to see something like that.
one thing I'd like to see them improve on is that they left a lot of people on the bases, especially Sunday. There were bases loaded, things like that. I know you're not going to like always hit a grand slam or whatever, but there were some times where there were runs that I feel like we should have had. And I think that's a good improvement point for further in the season.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's early on in the season. Obviously, baseball's a sport you've been playing spring training all this time, so you still got to get used to, like, pitches get a little bit faster. You're not pitching against, single A prospects. You're pitching against the best of the best from organizations. But, you will figure it out. You don't leave bases on all the time. And if they can figure it out late, they can kind of stretch it out, maybe get some more runs early on and figure it out.
Now, Detroit City FC, 3 wins, 3 games. This is a great start for a club that last year, frankly, hobbled into the playoffs. And I just wanted to talk to you about what feels different to you. What are a couple of things? Because to me, by the eye test, although there are a number of players that came back from last year, this team feels glued together more than ever. So what are a couple of things in your mind that have changed?
I see two things, and one of them kind of breaks into two, so that makes it kind of 2/3.
2.5, maybe?
Yeah. Number one, I've mentioned before, Elvis Amo's movement. No disrespect to Skage last year or Ben Morris, but
Is Skage even playing right now?
as of right now, no, he's not.
Okay. Because he went to Hartford, then he got bounced.
Yeah, he requested to leave Hartford. I think he realized that he would not be in the plans there, and that's sad, but
I heard that Antoine Hopino suited up for somebody randomly. So Antoine's actually suited up for somebody, not in USL, but he's doing more than Skage.
But Elvis Amo's movement has been great. Whether he's moving to score goals, whether he's moving to assist, he's always moving. And the thing I like about him is he makes runs, sometimes not even to get the ball. He makes runs to free up teammates, and which that's what you want from a total number 9 striker. Number 9 being the position he is on the field up top. You want someone who can be selfless and also selfish. You want someone who understands, like, I can make a run for myself, gets open, I'm open here, I want the ball, but also I'm making a run here. I am not open, but I'm making this run anyways because I know if I move here, I'm going to draw someone out of the way, and if I'm doing something consistently to draw people out of the way, pick up a foul or something, now someone else is open. And secondly, the one that's kind of two things, James Murphy. James Murphy coming by way of Monterey Bay might have been a bit more less heralded than Elvis Amo or even Ali Koot. But the reason why James Murphy to me is a two-parter is one, he plays in the holding midfield position, which is like in the central but towards the back, kind of right in front of the defensive line. And his position there means he can play next to Lay Jope, which allows Maxi to press up. Before, when Maxi was playing next to Lay and having someone else like Connor or even Ben Morris be in front of him, it meant that Maxi had to play more defensively. He could not press up the way he likes to press up because if he did, it would leave a gap. It would leave Lay responsible to being the sole midfielder in front of the defensive line, which sometimes cause problems because Lay can be great, but he can also be very rash, make a bad challenge, and then puts extra stress on the defense. But with James Murphy there, James Murphy can spray passes out left and right. James Murphy is also an excellent free kick taker, as evidenced by the second goal, which was off a James Murphy free kick to Yazid to then Maxi. And it allows Maxi to press up. And when they were playing in Nisa and Maxi scored all those goals, a lot of them came via penalty kick, which is neither here nor there. But the ones that didn't came from late runs, kind of like the old Pistons with Rasheed Wallace. When he would trail behind the play, they'd get down there, pass it to him wide open at the top of the key or top of the three-point line and take a shot to make it. Maxi times his runs late, so they get into the box. They look to cross into the box. Everyone flushes towards the middle of the box so they can try to stop the header. Maxi's at the top of the box waiting for a ball to just slot it into one of the corners. It allows him to get back to the game we all know and love from him. It allows him to go back to maybe scoring 7, 8, 9 goals, or at least contributing in a much more impactful offensive way. And if not, at least pressuring the ball and making them make decisions quicker. This team is moving the ball quicker. This team is pressing quicker. They have a competent offense. Even if they would have lost that game against Indy 11 or tied, they still showed some more going forward than they showed at all last year. And I saw a point that someone mentioned, Nicholas Murray of the USL Championship mentioned. They've won 2 games from being behind this year, so they've rescued 6 points. Because soccer wins are 3 points. All of last year, from being behind, they rescued 4 points. So already in this season, they've rescued more points from being behind than they have last year, which shows that they are not packing it in. The way that they played last year with Trevor is they kind of played the old English way. We're going to get the ball, we're going to hoof it deep, and we're going to hopefully cross it into the box and maybe score a goal. And if we score early, we're just going to hold on for dear life and hope you don't score against us. Whereas now it's like, we're going to try to score a goal in the first minute. And if we don't score in the first, the second minute, or the 5th, or the 10th. And if we get behind, cool, we still have the firepower to come back and score. And seeing that has to be refreshing for fans.
I don't have the fear that I did last year that we would not score. If we get behind in the first half, I'm like, okay, it's a real possibility that we can do something. I am very positive about the club, but I do have a little bit of concern. I do want to see how they do against the Yankees of the Eastern Conference. I want to see how they stand toe-to-toe with Louisville. And although Tampa Bay is not at the top of the table, it's still very early. I want to see how they do against those 2 top clubs as the dipstick of, okay, is this going to be a solid playoff team, or are we going to be in contention for the top of the table?
I'll say two things. One, for me, Indy was like the first measuring stick of like, this is a team that is pretty consistent. Yeah, sometimes they don't make the playoffs, but they're always a hard out if they don't make the playoffs or if they do. So for them to handle Indy well, especially after how the friendly went this offseason, especially how the last game went last year, that lets me know like this team is a bit different. And also, I'll say this, they're not better than Louisville right now. I know this already. I watched Louisville play against Birmingham.
That was my worry too. I watched that.
They eviscerated them. 5 different people scored. Wilson Harris is like the second coming of like soccer Jesus in the second level. It's very frightening, but I will say this. They might lose to Louisville if they play. They're not losing 5-0 like last year in the playoffs. They're not getting eviscerated like they were. It's not going to be a wrecking ball into a small brick that just explodes. It's not going to be that. Like if they lose, it's going to be 2-1, 2-0.
But that's close enough. That's close enough to win on any given day.
Exactly. Kind of like what happened with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, the first game, they beat them 2-0. Second game, it's 1-1. Third game in the playoffs, they beat Pittsburgh 1. It shows like the coin flip right there. So if you can remain close against these teams, especially in a sport like soccer, all it takes is a ball to bounce. We saw in the first game, Connor Rutz had a goal where he literally had to score from the seat of his pants because a ball bounced somewhere where he was still able to get it without somehow it randomly didn't touch his hand or anything else. So all it takes is for one random bounce when you keep games close, and games can be decided like that. And this team right here, I'm a little bit worried because everyone's so high in them now, and that's typically when like something happens where the bottom falls out a little bit. But if they keep playing like this, it's going to be hard to not have Danny Dicchio in the Coach of the Year conversation at the end of the year.
100%. North Carolina comes to town, new squad for the USL Championship. We will be out there 2 p.m. at Keyworth. Fletcher, thoughts? I know it's hard because this is a new squad.
North Carolina was pretty good in the USL League One. They technically won promotion as they won the league last year. So, like, you can be like, they won. They have a familiar face, Rafa Menzingen, who spent some time with Lansing United. He tore it up, then he came to Detroit and played for a little bit on the wing. He plays for North Carolina, so to see him probably get a decent welcome before the game and decent one after, but during probably get a lot of awful things thrown his way, as most opposing players coming here do. I expect them to do well. I expect a 2-0 victory. They are a pretty solid squad, but they still have some League One players. No offense to them, but also moving up is kind of a hard thing to do. You don't really have a dipstick of what you need in terms of personnel. You think you might have enough, then you get punched in the face and realize you don't. DCFC kind of dealt that their first year for a bit, so I expect them to struggle a little bit. They've struggled a little bit this year already. They've shown some backbone, but haven't really committed to finishing anything. So I think DCFC scores early, scores again late to put it away 2-0.
One thing about the schedule that I think is interesting is that we were talking about Louisville and Tampa Bay, to circle back on that. Louisville doesn't show up in the schedule until the end of May 29th, and then Tampa Bay doesn't show up until July. So there are a lot of very winnable games between now and then. I kind of wish the test was a little bit earlier, but to see that, I'm like, this could be a pretty strong run. I hope. Fingers crossed, knock on studio table wood.
I kind of hope for the opposite, only because it allows them to get more time to gel. Like, there's still some moments where you can tell this team is, like, figuring some stuff out.
Okay. So you're here for Louisville playing on the 29th.
Yeah. I kind of want a bit more time to let this team figure a few more things out. Obviously, they're gelling better than they were last year for sure. But even still, you have some new faces. Someone makes a run somewhere expecting a ball to be somewhere else, and it's not there because they're used to the ball being here, the ball being there. I mean, again, if they keep playing the way they're supposed to be playing and playing the way Dicchio has them set up to play, this could be a team that finishes top 5 in the conference. I won't go any higher because,
I want to say, I'm going to put out there, they keep playing like this, I'm going to put out to the world home playoff game at Keyworth. That is a huge club goal.
That is possible. I can maybe switch to that later in the season if they keep going. But right now, I'm going to say top 5 just because that feels a bit more safer, so people don't hit me up and say, I told you so, when they finish 6th or something. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of wiggle room before I fully commit.
All right. How are you feeling about City? How are you feeling about the Panthers? How are you feeling about the Tigers? 313-789-3211 or dailydetroit@gmail.com. And remember to ask Fletcher anything, especially around soccer. If you've got your questions, frankly, there are no dumb questions. I know a lot of people are kind of newer to the sport, and we are glad to answer anything that you might want to know about.
There is one, don't ask us when DCFC is going to the MLS, because we do not have an answer for that.
All right, with that, I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Fletcher Sharpe.
Thank you so much for listening to your Daily Detroit. Remember to drop 5 stars on your favorite podcast app. And remember that you are somebody. We'll talk tomorrow.